Ajayi ventured into the Sambisa forest once again, determined to prove himself. He navigated the paths he had yet to explore. After hours of walking, he heard an enchanting voice, a melody like none he had ever heard. Curiosity piqued, he followed the sound until he stumbled upon a glistering river bank, where a breathtaking mermaid shimmered in the sunlight. In the heart of Agungu village, nestled beside the sprawling forest of Sambisa, lived a man named Ajayi. He was no ordinary man. Ajayi was a masterful hunter, known far and wide for his unmatched skills. Every morning, while the sun began to rise and the villagers stirred from their sleep, Ajayi would head into the dense forest, ready to face its many challenges. To the people of Agungu, he was a legend, and every man wished to be just like him. Yet, no one could match his talent. Ajayi did not hunt out of necessity. He had more than enough food to last him a lifetime. Instead, he hunted for the fun of it, seeking adventure and the joy of mastering the world. Unlike the other hunters, he always returned from the forest with more meat than he could carry, and this only fueled the envy of the other men in the village. Despite his solitude, Ajayi felt no loneliness within the depth of the forest. The trees and the creation were his only companion. On one fine day, Ajayi ventured deeper into the Sambisa forest than he had ever gone before. The birds shimmered merrily as he walked, and the trees whispered secrets he felt he could almost understand. That day, with a swift and a steady hand, he trapped several animals, filling a wheelbarrow he had borrowed with the meat. As he made his way back to his hut, the meat caught the attentions of the villagers. Upon returning to his hut, Ajayi took a moment to rest, but the news of the freshly caught bushmeat quickly attracted the villagers. They were curious and eager to see for themselves the lion, the elephant, and other animals Ajayi had caught. Little did Ajayi know that the amount of animal he had caught that day would set off a chain of events he could never have imagined. As he settled down to prepare a meal, a group of villagers gathered outside his hut, buzzing with excitement. They marveled at the wheelbarrow full of meat and began speculating about the creature Ajayi had caught. Is it an antelope or an elephant or a lion? They whispered among themselves, each person sharing their own view of what they have heard and the myths before them. Ajayi overheard their shouter and was amused. He became somewhat of a local celebrity, but he preferred to keep his hunting secrets to himself. Ignoring the crowd, he went about his business, but the noise soon grew louder. The curious villagers, eager to see the man who had caught the most bountiful bushmeat, flocked into his compound, directed by a strong sense of wonder. Finally, a few busherers from Agungu approached Ajayi with hopeful eyes. Good day, Mr. Ajayi. We have heard of your extraordinary catch. How much do you want for the meat? The first busherer asked, his voice trembling with excitement. Ajayi simply waved his hands, his gaze focused on the meat. And after a brief moment of silence, Ajayi responded, who are you? The busherers exchanged glances before the second busherer spoke up. We are the busherers of Agungu market. We want to buy your meat. Their eagerness was palpable, and after a bit of back and forth, Ajayi struck a deal, selling the bushmeat for a price that he would soon come to regret. The sales of his first big catch opened doors Ajayi had never imagined. Sadly, busherers from neighboring village wanted a piece of his meat. It turned into a frenzy. The busherers would compete to buy Ajayi's meat. He found himself returning to the forest not just for his fun, but for a growing desire for a bigger catch. As days turned into weeks, Ajayi transformed from a man who used to hunt just for himself to a business savage providing for the village busherers. The villagers celebrated his skills, but their admiration quickly turned to envy as he became one of the wealthiest men in Agungu. One sunlight afternoon, Chief Awolo, one of the village leader, paid a visit to Ajayi's hut. Ajayi, the great hunter of Sambisa, I have come to seek your help, he said, his voice echoing with admiration. Ajayi, still irritable at the intrusion, grunted in response, waiting for the chief to get to the point. I would like you to teach my eldest son your hunting skills. He has the potential, but he needs your guidance to become as skilled as you, Chief Awolo stated, looking directly into Ajayi's eyes. Ajayi, surprised, replied firmly, I don't teach people how to hunt. His tone was final, leaving no room for negotiation. Offended but not deterred, Chief Awolo said to him, okay, name your price. Ajayi, looking firmly at the chief again, said, my skills is priceless and off the market. And this gave the chief no option but to take his leave in a foul mood. The news of Ajayi's refusal soon spread quickly among the villagers, and whispers filled the air. That fateful night, the king summoned all the hunters to relay a grave message. Listen closely, hunters of Agungu. A dangerous mermaid has taken residence in the Sambisa forest, and I heard she is very angry and will take revenge if provoked. So, for your own safety, I decree a ban on hunting in Sambisa for the next 7 days. The king declared, and the warning swing through the village. But Ajayi, determined and deviant, shrugged off the king's caution. Despite the king's warning, Ajayi remained undeterred. In the depth of the night, when the village was asleep, he would sneak back into the forest with camouflage. Ajayi felt invisible. He had always succeeded in the past, and he was sure he could continue doing so. However, on the fifth day of his secret hunting, a sense of unease settled in. Ajayi walked through the forest confident, yet he did not see a single animal.
highlifeng.com.
Frustrated, he followed the track of a deer, but ended up walking in circles. It was already dawn, but he still hasn't caught anything. So, he left the forest without his usual camouflage. On that fateful afternoon, Ajayi was summoned to the palace by the king's guard. Ajayi, you must explain why we heard you are disregarding the king's order. One guard pressed. The palace felt cold and forbidding. The atmosphere thick with anticipation as Ajayi approached the king. Sitting before the royalty, Ajayi maintained his fierce expression. I have heard the rumors, but I am still a capable hunter, he stated confidently. The king frowned and warned, your skills may not save you from the wrath of the mermaid. I urge you to stay away. But Ajayi brushed aside the warning, thinking it was untouchable. The following day, Ajayi ventured into the Sambisa forest again, determined to prove himself. He navigated the path he had yet to explore. After hours of walking, he heard an enchanting voice, a melody like none he had ever heard. Curiosity piqued. He followed the sound until he stumbled upon a glistering river bank. where a breathtaking mermaid shimmered in the sunlight. With animals gathered around her, Ajayi's heart raced. He pulled out his bow, ready to catch an antelope nearby. But just as he aimed and released, an invisible force struck down and he found himself submerged in the river. Underwater, panic enveloped Ajayi. He had lost his weapon and his strength began to fade. As he looked around, he saw the mermaid rising before him, her eyes blazing with anger. "What have you done? How dare you hunt in my territory?" She yielded, her voice echoing through the water. Ajayi, struggling to swim, managed to utter, I I did not mean any harm. The sight of the animals free from his control made him realize his foolishness. He had ventured into dangerous territory, and now he was trapped by the very force he had disregarded.
highlifeng.com.
Years ago, your kind hunted my child. I promised to protect my kingdom, and now you shall pay for your greed. The mermaid hissed, her grip tightening around him, pulling him deeper into the water. Ajayi fought to free himself, but the mermaid's strength was beyond anything he had ever faced. "I was but a hunter. I sought only the fun," Ajayi pleaded, understanding too late the value of the king's word. Yet the mermaid's eyes held no mercy. She dragged him into her watery territory, ready to exert her revenge on the hunter who had ignored the warnings. Deep within the river, Ajayi felt hopeless. Regret filled in his heart as he reflected on the choices he had made, dismissing the king's advice and pursuing his greed. If only I had listened, he thought as the current pulled him along. The animals, once terrified and captive, roamed free past the river bank, and Ajayi realized his arrogance had cost him everything. "Let me go! I will never hunt again!" he shouted desperately, but the mermaid simply shook her head, the anger in her eyes still unyielding. "You think you can wage power over the forest and not face the consequences? Today, your fate is sealed." What do you think happened next? Will Ajayi ever be free to hunt again, or is forever stuck with the mermaid? Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. See you in part 2. Bye.